Hey, it's Tree and I'm back for another video. Today is day 18 out of 100 days of Wakefield comics, not comments. Today I just wanted to talk about my mistakes I've made over the years with my comic, just so you guys can get a vibe for that, and it's okay to make mistakes and you shouldn't really fear them, because it's just gonna happen, especially if you're new to comics. I do have some notes on this, but I might expand a little bit more. Plus, I just finished chapter 2, so I might make another video talking about that. I don't know. I might wait a bit. So, here's a little background. I started posting Wakefield on July 10th, 2018. And I was very self-conscious about my writing, and I've talked about this a little bit with my AP English story, so you might want to go watch those. I don't know. But I wasn't very confident with my writing, and I didn't feel okay making a story and then hating it later. So I ended up approaching Sunny about that, because they were a writer. And on top of that, I just wanted to start making something with my art, and I figured comics was a good way to do that, and I had been trying to make comics for several years at that point. But they all led nowhere, really, just because of the big factor that I was incompetent with my writing. I've also made a video, I believe, talking about my past comic work and how I feel about it. Within days of posting that first episode, that was when I was already approached Sunny, so I didn't really wait at all. There was no planning. I just jumped into it, and for various reasons that can be bad, the story wasn't finished. So I had no idea where we were going, and if Sunny wanted to change plot elements, it just didn't feel right to change them after posting about it. I didn't have any outfit references or locations, and we added Lorena into the story basically just because I already had her character drawn. And she's just a blank slate that Sunny could put ideas into. This meant that while I was making the pages, if there was something I hadn't drawn before, I would have to go back and make things for that. Like, I didn't plan the couch to look the way it did until I was drawing it. I had never drawn couches before, so I didn't even practice drawing couches before that point. Which led to large breaks in between my work. Like, if there was something I'd never drawn before, I just wouldn't post new pages because I was trying to figure out how to draw it. It also made the comic take longer to make, just because I was pausing every few minutes. Every week I would start a new page to finish by Friday, and not all the time did I make it to Friday, if that makes sense. Just because I had real life responsibilities. I think in 2018, that was when I was still taking a break from school due to various circumstances explained. Basically, I flunked out my first year of college due to depression and things like that, and I wasn't able to go to school right away, so I was taking a break before I could go back to school because I couldn't find a job, and yeah, that's basically it. But I still had real life responsibilities, like I take care of my grandparents and things like that. Another thing is that I didn't have them properly formatted, so I literally can't print the first few pages of Wakefield if I ever want to print Wakefield, which isn't a bad thing, but also quite literally I drew the pages to fit into the dimensions that Tapas has instead of making it bigger and shrinking it down like I do now. Also, because of the whole not planning ahead of time, that probably made the comic hard to follow, because people couldn't see when I was going to schedule my posts. They wouldn't know when to come back to the comic. Another thing is that I would cut corners a lot of the time. If I didn't want to draw something complicated, I just wouldn't. There's this one scene where Frankie's holding a key, and then there's a shot of a door. I didn't want to draw him putting the key into the door. I also really struggled drawing him holding a box, and that box looks not that good. The doorway in the next panel is quite literally just textures I pasted, and they're not really in a realistic measurement, let's just put it that way, because they're too big. There's no way that this hallway is that small, let's put it that way. I'm also not a fan of the coloring. I didn't know what I was doing with the coloring at first. The comic starts with him moving in the early morning, and it slowly goes throughout the day. But when something serious happened, I suddenly gave it this blue lighting, and I just think it kind of looks weird. It doesn't convey what I wanted it to convey at the time, which is kind of another part of the poor planning. I didn't know how I wanted the serious parts to look in comparison to the rest of the comic, and it just doesn't look nice. I don't like how it looks. There's also a problem because at one point I lost the script for chapter 1 because it was all written on paper instead of in a Google Drive that I could access at any time. And that just led to problems because there was this scene where Emery is looking out a window, and he was supposed to go into that flashback scene that I put in chapter 2. So it was supposed to happen there, and it didn't happen. And it's all my fault. Here's another thing about planning things. The cafe, we actually wanted to be 2 stories. And that just changed because Sunny didn't know what they wanted in the future for Wakefield. So, she didn't plan. They didn't plan to ever see Lorena's house, as far as I know, and then they started writing more, and then they realized Lorena doesn't have a home. So now I have to draw a new location for her home, when it could have just been a 2-story cafe. Another thing I don't really like is that there's some pages where it shows some of my other OCs to show that the area is more populated. But when he gets in the cafe, it's just Lorena and Emery. And that's kind of weird. Why isn't there any people in the cafe besides Lorena and Emery and Frankie? It doesn't make much sense to me. So, I feel like I should plan better in the future what the backgrounds will look like. Just so that there's more people and it's more populated. And a lot of the backgrounds, they feel very sterile. Like, there's no coffee stains or anything like that. Wear and tear. It's just, it's kind of boring. It doesn't look lived in. But yeah, a lot of my problems with chapter 1 just stem from the fact that I had a lot of poor planning. Which isn't exactly Sunny's fault, because I just hopped into making this comic, and I didn't wait for writing to be done. And I mean, if I wanted to change some things, I probably could go back and redraw it. But that just takes out time of making new pages, and you kind of get in the habit of redrawing pages over and over again. I had this one animation, way back in the day, and I just kept redrawing frames over and over again because it wasn't finished yet, but I started hating my old art, and that's kind of what's happening with Wakefield, and that kind of is what happens with a lot of comics. So I feel like you shouldn't be afraid to make mistakes, for one. Two, it's the fact that, like, you're not gonna like your beginning pages anyway. So you just don't want to get in the habit of redrawing them all the time. But yeah, these are all of my thoughts regarding the first chapter of Wakefield. And I definitely hope to make another chapter soon. And then after some time I can go over it again and tell you what I think of chapter 2. So thanks for listening to me ramble, and I will see you next time. Also, subscribe if you want to see more content. I'm gonna finally start releasing these videos, and that's kind of scary, but it's gotta be done eventually. I'm thinking of uploading on Tuesdays and Thursdays.